My parents said pain was beauty until they burned my face off with illegal bleach. My sister, with my parents' help, ruined my face using forbidden skin lightening cream. Because of this, I completely cut them out of my life. 2 years later, my sister came back, desperate and seeking assistance. My family is, without a doubt, the most prejudiced group I've ever encountered. During summer outings, my mother would meticulously count how many times my older sister and I stepped out of the shade. Once we returned home, each instance resulted in a harsh slap. For years, our morning ritual involved our mom applying skin whitener, bought from a discount store, all over our bodies. The fairer our complexions, the better we were treated. I just wanted to be a regular child, but my sister, on the other hand, was completely obsessed with achieving a lighter skin tone. Every night, she'd set an alarm for every 2 hours, ensuring her sleep was severely disrupted. This constant exhaustion naturally made her appear paler. And instead of our parents prioritizing her well-being over her appearance, they treated her like royalty. She received beautiful dresses, expensive jewelry, literally anything she desired. It soon became clear who the favored child was, and I believed if I wanted their affection, this was the path I had to follow. But I was desperate to find alternative ways, achieving top grades in school, thoroughly cleaning the house every weekend, giving my parents foot massages. "Thanks, honey, but I really wish you worked this hard on getting beautiful, pale skin like your sister," they'd constantly say. When my parents gave me a literal bleach hair product imported from Africa for my 16th birthday, I spent the entire day weeping into a teddy bear in my room. That's when my sister entered and embraced me. I imagined she would tell me she'd always be there for me, that beneath my skin color, I was still her sister, and that was all that truly mattered. But no. "Isla, I love you, and I want to help you. Look at me." I gazed at her emaciated self, the under-eye bags creating hollows, the chemical burns on her scalp from straightening her hair. "If I can look this beautiful, so can you." I truly thought she was playing a trick on me, but the gleam in her eyes indicated otherwise. She genuinely believed that treating herself this way was the correct path. From that point on, I began wearing foundation 2 shades lighter than my skin tone and always found ways to conceal the rest of my body. Not because I disliked my brown skin or natural curls, but simply because it would make my parents happier. After all, they were the ones who gave birth to me. Fast forward 6 years later. I just graduated from the University of Florida. Last Thanksgiving, I felt quite good. I had taken up running and spent so much time outdoors that I was compelled to embrace my natural complexion and appearance, and I adored it. My boyfriend, Carlos, loved it too. He was half Puerto Rican, half Italian, and very familiar with the concept of internalized racism. However, he was also white passing, so I expected everything with my parents to go smoothly, until reality struck. I arrived at my parents' house with him holding my hand. I had even applied a slightly lighter foundation to mitigate the impact of everything. When the door opened, I saw a woman who resembled my sister, yet appeared more despondent, deathly pale, and extremely slender. My heart ached, and I suppose hers did too, because as soon as she saw us, she cried out, "Dios mío, what are you doing to our bloodline?" My boyfriend immediately squeezed my hand as if to say, "It's okay, we've got this." Meanwhile, tears streamed down my face. "My love, what have you done to yourself?" my mom shrieked, attempting to undo my slicked-back bun and straighten it with her fingers. That's when she noticed Carlos. Her mouth opened so wide I thought her jaw would dislocate. You almost had me believing that this monkey was actually your boyfriend, but I understand you're young, just messing around." She then chuckled to herself, as if it were the funniest thing in the world. My dad then took my hand to pull me inside and immediately handed my sister the skin whitening cream to apply to my face, except it wasn't the same one from my childhood. This one hurt. "Stop. Get away from me," I screamed, tears streaming down my face. Within seconds, blisters covered my face, and my skin was peeling all over. As I shrieked, Carlos called the hospital. I figured by this point my parents would realize they were acting foolishly, but no. My dad tried to wrestle with Carlos to grab the phone from him. "Pain is beauty. Isla will be beautiful." Meanwhile, my entire face felt like it had been dipped in hot sauce over 100 times. Fortunately, they still arrived, and by the time I was seen by nurses, my eyebrows had already been burned off. The next morning, when I awoke from the skin grafting procedure, my boyfriend was kissing my hand and calling me beautiful. Then I checked my phone. I immediately noticed I had been bombarded with dozens of texts and missed calls. The first voicemail was angry, telling me I was a disappointment to the family. The second was threatening. By the 10th, my sister was pleading not to press charges. "They're our parents," she said in the message. "They just want what's best for us. Please come home, and we can fix this." I couldn't believe she was still defending them after everything. Her voice sounded hollow, defeated, like someone who had given up fighting long ago. Carlos sat with me as I listened to the messages, his face growing more concerned with each one. Isla, he said quietly, this isn't normal. What they did to you is abuse. It's always been abuse. He held my hand gently, careful not to disturb the foreline. I knew he was right, but hearing him say it aloud made something click inside me. All these years I'd been trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. I'd been letting them hurt me physically and emotionally because I thought that's what family meant. I'd normalized their behavior, made excuses for their cruelty, and blamed myself for not being what they wanted. The hospital social worker came in later that day. She asked about my burns, and for the first time in my life, I told someone the whole truth about my family. I can't tell you what I did next in this short video. The full story is on the channel, link below. I was still in the hospital when I decided to press charges. The social worker helped me file a police report, and honestly, I was terrified. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely sign the paperwork. The officer who took my statement was an older man named Officer Ramirez, who kept looking at me with sad eyes, like he'd witnessed this kind of thing before. You're doing the right thing, he told me while I described the years of abuse. Not going to lie, I almost backed out about 50 times during that conversation. There's this strange guilt that comes with reporting your own parents, even when they've literally burned your face off with illegal skin bleach. Carlos stayed with me the whole time. He held my hand through all the questioning and brought me real food because hospital food is truly awful. The nurses kept calling him my husband, and neither of us corrected them. It felt nice, like a glimpse into a future where I had a real family that actually cared about me. My phone kept constantly vibrating with messages from my parents and sister. I eventually just turned it off because reading them was making my blood pressure spike, which the doctor said wasn't great for my recovery. My mom switched between threatening me and begging me to come home. My dad sent these long paragraphs about family loyalty and how I was betraying my heritage by acting this way. The irony of him talking about heritage while literally trying to bleach it off my skin wasn't lost on me. The worst messages were from my sister, Elena. They're going to take me away if you do this, she texted. Please, Isla, I need them. I don't know how to live any other way. That one hit me hard. I knew exactly what she meant. When your entire identity is built around pleasing someone else, the thought of losing that structure is terrifying. I got discharged after 3 days. My face was still bandaged, and I looked like a mummy from some low-budget horror movie. The doctor said I'd need follow-up appointments for the next few months to ensure the skin grafts were healing properly. They also gave me this special cream that cost more than my monthly rent. Thank goodness for Carlos's insurance that covered most of it. We went straight to Carlos's apartment. I couldn't face going back to my place knowing my parents might show up there. Carlos lived in a tiny one-bedroom near campus with mismatched furniture and a kitchen barely large enough to turn around in, but it felt safer than anywhere I had lived before. That first night away from the hospital, I had a complete breakdown. I'm talking ugly crying, snot everywhere, the whole works. Carlos just held me and let me express it all. I kept saying how I should have done something sooner, how I should have protected Elena, how maybe I was overreacting. Carlos just listened, occasionally wiping my tears away carefully to avoid the bandages. You know what the craziest part is? I told him around 3 a.m. when we were both still awake. A part of me still wants them to love me. How messed up is that? The next morning, I woke up to a knock on the door. Carlos went to check while I hid in the bedroom, terrified it might be my parents. It wasn't them. It was Officer Ramirez with another officer I hadn't met before. We've spoken with your parents, Ramirez said when I finally came out. They're claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that you had an allergic reaction to a normal beauty product. I just stared at him. Of course they would say that. They've been covering up their abuse for years with excuses like that. The new officer, a woman named Officer Chen, asked if I had any evidence of the previous abuse. Did I have pictures of the slap marks? Had I ever reported it before? Did I have the packaging from the product they used on me? I didn't have any of that. Who takes pictures of their abuse when they're a child? Who keeps the empty bottles of the stuff that hurts them? I started panicking, thinking they wouldn't believe me, that my parents would get away with it like they always had. Then Carlos spoke up. The hospital has the chemical analysis of what was on her face. That should prove it wasn't a normal beauty product. Officer Chen nodded and made a note. We'll get that report. In the meantime, we've issued a temporary restraining order. Your parents can't contact you or come near you. After they left, I checked my phone again. 17 missed calls from my mom, 12 from my dad, and 23 from Elena, plus a bunch of texts. The most recent one from Elena made my stomach drop. They're saying you're mentally unstable, that you've always made up stories for attention. They have pictures of you looking happy at family events to prove it. I showed Carlos the message. They're going to twist everything. They'll make it look like I'm the crazy one. Carlos suggested I reach out to anyone who might have witnessed the abuse over the years. My mind immediately went to my old neighbor, Mrs. Patel, who used to let me hide in her apartment sometimes when things got bad at home. There was also my high school counselor, Mr. Thompson, who had noticed the makeup I wore to cover bruises once, but didn't push when I made up an excuse about falling. I spent the next few days making calls while trying to heal. Most people remembered something off about my family, but nothing specific enough to help. Mrs. Patel had moved to Arizona. Mr. Thompson vaguely recalled being concerned, but had no documentation. I was starting to lose hope when I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Jasmine from college. Carlos gave me your number. I have pictures from freshman year when you still had those chemical burns on your neck from home. Let me know if they would help." I had completely forgotten about those pictures. Jasmine had taken them during a dorm party when my makeup had rubbed off. I'd been mortified at the time and begged her to delete them, but apparently she never did. I called her immediately, and she promised to send them over. Meanwhile, Carlos was being an absolute champion. He rearranged his work schedule to drive me to doctor appointments, cooked actual meals instead of the ramen I'd been living on, and never once complained about the fact that his tiny apartment now contained all my belongings. One night, I caught him researching skincare for chemical burn recovery when he thought I was asleep. About a week after I filed the report, I got another unexpected call. It was from a woman named Danielle, who introduced herself as a victim advocate from the district attorney's office. She explained that they were considering pressing charges against my parents, but needed more information. "We have the hospital records and the chemical analysis," she said. "The substance on your face contained hydroquinone at levels far exceeding legal limits, plus mercury compounds that are banned in cosmetics in the US. I wasn't surprised. My parents had always sought out the strongest, most dangerous products, believing they were more effective. What had surprised me was when Danielle said, "We also have a statement from your sister." My heart stopped. Elena made a statement against our parents? There was a pause on the line. Not exactly. She's supporting their version of events. Says you've always been jealous of her relationship with your parents and that you're making up the abuse for attention. I hung up and threw my phone across the room. Carlos jumped up from where he'd been working on his laptop and came over to me. I told him what Danielle had said, and he just held me while I cried again. I was so tired of crying. "She's scared," Carlos said. "She's still living with them, right? She's doing what she needs to survive." I knew he was right, but it still hurt like hell. Elena had been there for everything. She'd experienced the same abuse I had, sometimes worse. How could she deny it now? The next day, I decided to try something different. I called Elena directly instead of texting. To my surprise, she answered. "Isla, you need to drop this," she said immediately, her voice low like she was trying not to be overheard. "They're really angry. Dad broke the coffee table yesterday. I've never seen him like this." I took a deep breath. "Elena, they hurt us. They're still hurting you. Look at yourself. When was the last time you ate a full meal or slept through the night?" "I'm fine," she snapped. "I'm beautiful. Everyone says so." "You're disappearing," I said softly. "Every time I see you, there's less of you there." She was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Then she whispered, "I don't know how to be any other way." "Neither did I told her. "But I'm learning. You can too." She hung up after that. I tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. I left a message telling her I loved her and that there was a place for her at Carlos's apartment if she ever needed it. The case against my parents moved slowly. There were interviews and paperwork and more interviews. The district attorney decided to charge them with assault and child endangerment based on the recent incident, but the years of past abuse were hard to prove. Danielle explained that without documentation or witnesses, it would be my word against theirs. Carlos suggested I start writing everything down, every incident I could remember, with as many details as possible. Even if it doesn't help the case, he said, it might help you process everything. So I did. I bought a cheap notebook from the campus bookstore and started filling it with memories. The time my mom slapped me so hard my nose bled because I played in the sprinklers at a friend's house. The Christmas my dad gave Elena a gold necklace and me a bottle of skin lightening lotion. The countless mornings spent having my hair painfully straightened while being told how ugly my natural curls were. Writing it all down was like lancing a wound. It hurt, but the poison needed to come out. Some nights, I could only manage a paragraph before I had to stop. Other times, I'd write for hours, the pages getting wet with tears. About 3 weeks after the Thanksgiving incident, I got another unexpected call. It was from my Aunt Rosa, my mom's sister, who lived in Miami. We weren't close. She moved to Florida when I was young, and we only saw her at major family events. "Isla, I just heard what happened," she said. Her accent was thicker than I remembered. "Your mother called me crying, saying you were making up terrible lies about them." My stomach sank. Great, now they were rallying the extended family against me. "It's not lies, Tia. They've been abusing me and Elena for years." There was a pause. Then Aunt Rosa said something that changed everything. "I know." 2 simple words, but they hit me like a truck. "I suspected," she clarified. The way your mother was always obsessed with your appearance, how you girls never seem to play outside like normal children. I asked her about it once, and she got so defensive. I never brought it up again. I should have done more. I sat down on Carlos's couch, my legs suddenly weak. Why are you calling me now? Because I believe you, she said, and because I found something. When your mother and I were growing up, our grandmother did similar things to her. I found old diaries of your mother's where she wrote about it. The skin bleaching, the obsession with looking more European. It was done to her too. This revelation didn't excuse what my parents had done, but it helped me understand it a little better. The cycle of abuse had started long before I was born. My mother had internalized her own grandmother's prejudice and passed it on to us. Aunt Rosa offered to send me the diaries and to testify if needed. She also said I could stay with her in Miami if I needed to get further away from my parents. I thanked her, but told her I was okay staying with Carlos for now. The next day, I had another follow-up appointment at the dermatologist. The doctor seemed pleased with how my face was healing. The redness was fading, and the new skin was growing properly. There would be some scarring, but less than they initially feared. You're lucky, the doctor said as she examined me. This could have been much worse. As we were leaving the clinic, I spotted a familiar figure in the parking lot. Elena was leaning against her car, looking even thinner than the last time I'd seen her. When she saw us, she straightened up and walked over hesitantly. What are you doing here? I asked, surprised. I followed Mom's car when she went grocery shopping, she said. I knew you had an appointment today. I saw it on the calendar at home. Carlos stood slightly behind me, a protective presence but giving us space to talk. Elena glanced at him nervously before focusing back on me. I've been thinking about what you said, she whispered. About disappearing. I looked in the mirror this morning and couldn't recognize myself. I wanted to hug her, but she flinched when I moved closer. Elena, you can get help. You can get out like I did. She shook her head frantically. I can't. They're watching me all the time now. Dad took my phone. I'm using Mom's while she's shopping. She looked over her shoulder anxiously. I don't have anywhere to go. You can stay with us, Carlos said immediately. We'll make room. Elena looked at him like he was speaking a foreign language. The idea of someone offering help without expecting anything in return seemed to confuse her. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. You're her sister, he said simply, as if that explained everything. And I guess for him, it did. Elena started to respond when her phone buzzed. She checked it, and her face went pale. Mom's done shopping. I have to go. She turned to leave, then stopped and handed me a small USB drive. I found this in Dad's office. It's their financial records. They've been ordering that skin bleach from overseas for years. It's all there, the payments, the shipping information. I took the drive, stunned. Elena, this could be really important for the case. I know, she said. That's why I took it. She started walking away, then called over her shoulder. I'll try to come to your place tomorrow. Text me the address. As we watched her hurry across the parking lot, Carlos squeezed my hand. She's stronger than she thinks. We both are, I replied. That night, we looked through the files on the USB drive. Elena had been right. There were years of records showing regular purchases of illegal skin lightening products from suppliers in Africa and Asia. Some of the ingredients listed were terrifying. Mercury compounds, high-concentration hydroquinone, even something called clobetasol propionate that a quick Google search revealed was a prescription-strength steroid never meant for long-term use on the face. I immediately called Danielle and told her about the new evidence. She seemed excited, saying this could strengthen their case significantly. She arranged for me to bring the drive to her office the next morning. I was nervous about Elena coming to Carlos's place. What if our parents followed her? What if she changed her mind? Carlos suggested we clean up a bit and make sure there was food she might like. I remembered she used to love quesadillas before she started severely restricting her eating, so we got ingredients for that. The next day passed with no sign of Elena. I texted the number she'd called from but got no response. By evening, I was pacing around Carlos's apartment, convinced something had happened to her. Maybe she couldn't get away, Carlos suggested, or maybe she's scared. Just as we were about to give up and eat dinner without her, there was a soft knock at the door. Carlos checked the peephole and quickly opened it. Elena stood there, a small backpack clutched to her chest, her face even paler than usual. They know I took the drive, she said as soon as she was inside. Dad was looking for it everywhere. When he couldn't find it, he started screaming at Mom, saying she must have moved it. I left while they were fighting. I hugged her, and this time she didn't pull away. She felt so fragile in my arms, like a bird with hollow bones. You're safe now, I told her, though I wasn't entirely sure that was true. Carlos made quesadillas while I helped Elena settle in. We didn't have much space, but we cleared out a corner of the living room and set up an air mattress with clean sheets and blankets. Elena looked at this simple setup like it was a luxury hotel room. I haven't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch in years, she admitted as she sat on the edge of the mattress. Mom said beautiful people don't need much sleep. Well, tonight you can sleep as long as you want, I told her. No alarms. We ate dinner together, and I noticed Elena taking tiny bites and pushing food around her plate to make it look like she'd eaten more than she had. I didn't comment on it. Recovery would take time for both of us. After dinner, Elena took a shower. When she came out wearing one of Carlos's t-shirts that hung like a dress on her thin frame, I noticed bruises on her arms that hadn't been visible before. Did they hurt you when they found out about the drive? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Elena looked down at the marks like she was seeing them for the first time. Dad grabbed me. He does that sometimes when he's angry. She said it so matter-of-factly, like she was commenting on the weather. I took pictures of the bruises with my phone, more evidence. Then I helped Elena apply some of my healing cream to them. We sat together on the air mattress afterward, neither of us quite knowing what to say. I'm sorry I told him you were lying, she finally whispered. I was scared. I know, I said. You don't need to apologize. She fell asleep quickly, exhaustion finally catching up with her. I covered her with an extra blanket and joined Carlos in his bedroom. We talked in low voices about what to do next. Having Elena with us changed things. Now, we needed to protect her too. The next morning, I called Danielle again to update her on the situation. She suggested bringing Elena in to make her own statement now that she was away from our parents. Elena agreed, though she was clearly terrified. What if they don't believe me either? She asked as we drove to the district attorney's office. What if they think I'm making it up too? The bruises help, I said, hating that I had to say those words. And we have the financial records now. Elena's interview lasted over 2 hours. Carlos and I waited outside, neither of us speaking much. When she finally emerged, her eyes were red from crying, but she looked somehow lighter, like setting down a heavy backpack after carrying it for miles. They believe me, she said, her voice filled with wonder. They're going to add charges based on what happened to me too. Danielle came out after her and explained that with Elena's testimony and the financial records, they now had a much stronger case. They were adding charges of child abuse, child endangerment, and assault for both of us, plus additional charges related to importing illegal substances. We'll be requesting a court date soon, she said. Both of you will likely need to testify. The thought of facing our parents in court made my stomach turn, but I nodded. We'll be ready. That afternoon, we got a call from Officer Ramirez. Our parents had been arrested. They were being held pending bail, which had been set high enough that they probably couldn't pay it immediately. The news should have made me feel safer, but instead, I just felt hollow. Elena had a different reaction. When I told her, she burst into tears, not sad tears, but something closer to relief. It's really over, she kept asking. They can't make me go back? It's really over. I confirmed, holding her as she cried. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, therapy appointments which Danielle had arranged for both of us, and adjusting to our new living situation. Carlos's tiny apartment was cramped with 3 people, but we made it work. Elena slept on the air mattress, I took the couch, and Carlos kept his bed. He never complained, not even when Elena had nightmares that woke us all up or when I accidentally used his toothbrush. Elena's physical health was concerning. Years of sleep deprivation and restricted eating had taken a serious toll. We found a doctor who specialized in eating disorders, and she started seeing him twice a week. The first time she ate a full meal without calculating calories or checking her skin tone afterward, she cried. My face continued to heal. The dermatologist was pleased with my progress, though she warned me to be extremely careful about sun exposure on the new skin. The irony wasn't lost on me. After years of being punished for sun exposure, now I had a legitimate medical reason to avoid it. Our parents were eventually released on bail, with strict orders not to contact us. They violated those orders almost immediately, sending emails from new accounts and even having friends call us with messages. Danielle helped us document every violation, which she said would only strengthen the case against them. Christmas came and went. It was the first holiday I'd ever spent away from my parents, and while there was some sadness, there was also a sense of freedom. Carlos's family invited us to their celebration, and his mom made traditional Puerto Rican dishes that reminded me of the food my grandmother used to make before she passed away. Elena ate more that day than I'd seen her eat in years. In January, we got notice that the trial was set for March. As the date approached, my anxiety skyrocketed. I started having panic attacks, sometimes waking up gasping for air, convinced I was back in my parents' house with burning chemicals on my face. Carlos suggested we all try something new to help manage the stress. He signed us up for a painting class at the community center. I was terrible at it. My trees looked like green blobs and my sunsets like someone had spilled orange juice on the canvas. But it was fun, and for those 2 hours each week, I didn't think about the trial or my parents or the scars on my face. Elena turned out to be surprisingly good at painting. Her first attempt at a landscape was actually decent, with mountains that looked like mountains in a sky with proper perspective. The instructor praised her work, and I watched my sister's face light up with genuine pride, perhaps for the first time in her life. I never knew I could make something beautiful instead of just trying to be beautiful, she told me afterward. February brought an unexpected development. Aunt Rosa called to say she'd spoken with other family members about what had happened. To my shock, several cousins and another aunt came forward with their own stories about my parents' behavior. They'd seen things over the years. The excessive focus on our appearance, the way we flinched when our parents raised their hands, how we never wore short sleeves even in summer. They're willing to provide statements, Aunt Rosa said. They should have spoken up sooner, but they're trying to do the right thing now. These additional testimonies strengthened our case even further. Danielle seemed increasingly confident about the outcome, though she warned us that court cases can be unpredictable. As March approached, Elena made remarkable progress. She'd gained a healthy amount of weight, and her hair was starting to look less brittle. She still struggled with sleep, often staying up late painting rather than setting an alarm to deliberately wake herself, but it was a step in the right direction. I was healing too, both physically and emotionally. The scars on my face were fading, though they'd never completely disappear. I'd started wearing my hair natural all the time, embracing the curls I'd been taught to hate. Carlos said they suited me, and I was beginning to agree. 1 week before the trial, we received an unexpected visitor. Our father's sister, Aunt Lucia, showed up at Carlos's apartment unannounced. Carlos was at work, so it was just me and Elena when she knocked. "Your parents sent me," she said as soon as we opened the door. "They want to make a deal." Elena started to close the door, but Aunt Lucia stuck her foot in. "Just hear me out. They're willing to plead guilty to reduced charges if you agree not to testify. They'll pay for your medical bills, Isla, and they'll leave you both alone forever." I looked at Elena, whose face had gone pale again. "We need to discuss this," I told Aunt Lucia. "Come back tomorrow." After she left, Elena and I called Danielle immediately. She advised against accepting any deal without her present and said she'd come over that evening to discuss it. When Danielle arrived, she explained that our parents were likely getting nervous about the trial. "The evidence against them is strong," she said. "They're trying to minimize the consequences." "What would happen if we agreed?" Elena asked. "Would they go to jail at all?" "Probably not," Danielle admitted. "With reduced charges, they might get probation, community service, maybe a fine." I thought about everything they'd done to us over the years. The physical pain, the emotional scars, the years of teaching us to hate ourselves. "That doesn't seem like enough," I said. "It's your decision," Danielle told us. "But remember, testifying means facing them in court. It means having your story questioned by their lawyer. It can be traumatic." Elena and I stayed up late that night talking about it. Part of me wanted to take the deal, to avoid seeing our parents again, to just move on with my life. But another part needed them to face real consequences. "What do you want to do?" I asked Elena around midnight. She was quiet for a long time before answering. "I want them to know they didn't break us. I want to look them in the eye and tell my story." The next day, when Aunt Lucia returned, we gave her our answer. No deal. We would testify. The week before the trial was tense. I had trouble sleeping, and even Carlos seemed on edge. Elena threw herself into painting, creating dark, swirling images that somehow captured exactly how she felt.